Hello, friends. Happy 2024. It is so good to be back here with all of you. For those of you who don't know, my name is Joyce Ozeh, and I am a civil rights attorney in Chicago, but I am also a mental health advocate and someone with lived experience specifically with anxiety and depression. What does that mean? Everything that I talk about on my show are things that I've practiced and continue to practice in my own life to get from a place of mental illness to a place of mental wealth and mental abundance. Here on this show, we call it Cultivate Your Mental Wealth because cultivation is like gardening. It's a way of enhancing, improving, and nurturing a thing with practice, careful attention, and time. And in time, you will see personal growth, mental wellness, and more than just wellness, mental abundance. That's why we call it mental wealth. It's to say that we were created for more than just survival and more than just wellness for ourselves. I believe that wellness is also for our communities. And as we get well and we get well abundantly, we can share the things that we've learned so it expels to the overflow with those around us. That is mental wealth. And that's what I believe is possible for all of us in this community. So thanks for being here. Before we get any further, I love to do audience check-ins. I want to know where you are tuning in from, where you're tuning in from, how your new year has been going so far. And I also want to do something a little fun. So I kind of wanted to take it a little bit easy, and I decided to wear my head wrap today. Most of y'all are probably the same. I like to wear head wraps like at least a couple times a week. It just makes things a lot easier. And this head wrap is actually from Zanzibar, East Africa, specifically Tanzania or Tanzania, like we say here. And I got it when I was in Zanzibar in September. And these earrings are actually from a friend who's a jewelry designer. Specifically, her name is Kendi Amani, Kandi Amani. And she actually designs jewelry, and women in Kenya from the Maasai tribe make it by hand. So I'm wearing some of her rings, and I'm just saying this because I love Black people. I love Black designers. So while you're telling me where you're watching from, tell me in the chat who your favorite Black designer is. It could be someone that's very well known. It could be someone that's your friend, but let's share community and resources with each other. Who are some of your favorite Black designers? Let me know, and I'd love to give a shout out or highlight in the next show. So drop those comments. Also, what you can expect from this show, besides great places to shop, we're going to be talking about a new series for the new year and a new theme that I'm very excited about. I want to do what's going to come next after we have that discussion, another audience check-in, and as always, we'll end the show with practical pushes. So that's what's on the agenda for today. Please, please, please drop those comments. I promise to interact with you. And if I can't get to your comment during the show, don't feel bad. You will definitely get a follow-up comment after the show. I go through every comment and I respond personally. And if you don't want to be so public, we have a Gmail account specifically for my listeners, and that is comethrive247@gmail.com. That is comethrive247@gmail.com. I've been promising y'all a listeners episode for a while, and we actually did one last year, so I kept my promise. But there are more things from listeners that I want to share. And I'm just figuring out how to put together all these stories for a seamless episode. So I promise that you get to be a part of the show when you write into me at that email. Does that sound good? I hope it does. Okay. Before we get into the main discussion of the show, I like to do what I call setting the room. Okay, friends, let's take a deep breath. or a shallow one if you don't feel like getting that deep. First, I want to remind you that this is your room and this is our space. Sometimes I'll be talking by myself like I'm doing today. Sometimes I'll have a guest with me on the show, but always, always, always feel like this is our conversation because it is. You can share stories in the chat. You can ask your questions about mental wellness and the struggles that you're going through. Just know that you are safe here, you are seen here, and you belong here. And I'm so happy to have you with us. Okay, now that we've set the room, let's get into the discussion for this week. And our two-part series starts today, and it is... That was a fake drum roll. I'm actually a terrible drummer, so I shouldn't have done that. But our two-part series is called Cultivating Renewal. Cultivating Renewal. And we will be exploring how to cultivate renewal in the new year with our minds. And also in part 2, cultivating resilience. Renewal and resilience. These are very important concepts as we enter a new year with intentions and with goals and with desires and with hopes. We need to make sure that our minds are fertile ground so that we can move through the year successfully. In fact, I've decided that the theme for this entire year is a renewed mind. A renewed mind. Our mental wellness is most literally tied to the state of our minds. And I want us to remember that we don't have to be who we've always been. And in order to get to places of wellness, we have to renew our minds and renew our ways of thinking so that we can create new pathways in our brains for abundance, wellness, healing, and hope. So, that's the theme for the year, renewed mind. The theme for the night is cultivating renewal in this new year. So let's get started with that. I also know from our last discussion that some of y'all don't really like the idea of a new year. It can be overwhelming, daunting. A lot of people are actually really naturally opposed to change. And that is because humans, we've heard it before and it's true, humans are creatures of habit. How often in high school, when you had to go to the cafeteria, did you gravitate towards the same section in the cafeteria to sit? How often was it that you chose a different seat every day or every month? It's because something about habit makes humans feel safe and secure and comfortable. Well, I'm here to shake things up for us. I'm here to say that a part of cultivating renewal for the new year means embracing change. Yes, we have to be willing to embrace change. And there is so much power in new beginnings. So I was a really shy kid growing up. I was very introverted. In fact, I'm still am introverted. I just kind of joke and people think I'm extroverted. I'm also really tall, so people think I'm very outgoing. But I was introverted, still am introverted, and I'm quite shy. But what I did a lot as a kid was I read a lot of books. And when I'm thinking about new beginnings, I'm thinking about how much I love starting a new book. How many of y'all really like reading? It can be books, magazines, newspaper articles, anything. I love getting a new book and just the idea of possibilities. The author hasn't messed it up yet because I haven't started it. And I just get to read the summary and just dream about, how good this book can possibly be. That to me is a new beginning. And I can almost say that I love the idea of a new beginning, like a new book, more than I actually like reading some of these books. Because you just get to dream and the possibilities kind of feel endless. I also feel the same way about getting a brand new journal. And there is just something about having that fresh, crisp start. A part of embracing change is looking at change as a new book that you get to start, or an empty journal that you get to narrate and be the author of that story. Being open to new beginnings actually assists us in personal growth and new opportunities. And it is in new opportunities that we get to make all the dreams that we have more real. There's a quote that I've heard that I actually really like, and it goes a little something like, so much of what you desire is on the other side of fear. That is to say, you have big dreams and big hopes for yourself. Maybe it's opening up a business. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's writing a play. Maybe it's going back to school. You have big dreams for yourself, but fear sometimes stops us from doing things. So much of what we desire is on the other side of fear. But I will also say that so much of what we desire is on the other side of new. What's new? This is why it's important to embrace change, because you actually want something different for your life, but you can't get there unless you embrace what's coming. So be open to change, be open to newness, be open to this new year and new possibilities. That's what cultivating renewal is about. That's part of it. I also want us to adapt to change. We have all heard it said, keep an open mind, keep an open mind. But what does that really mean? A part of what keeping an open mind can look like is, let's say things don't go as planned, right? That is probably every day of most of our lives, things not going as planned. But instead of seeing it as a missed opportunity or a closed door or a challenge, what if you viewed things not going as planned or receiving a no as a blessing? What if things not going as planned was in itself an opportunity? An example, I was looking to buy a house with my husband this past fall. And as soon as we started the search, we found a house that I fell in love with. It was just beautiful, modern, like redone kitchen, totally renovated, but the floors were beautiful and it was like a traditional design, and it was just like my dream house. And then we didn't get the house. Another person bid higher than us. That felt disappointing, of course, but a part of adapting to change for me was looking at that and thinking, there might have been protection or a blessing in that no. There might have been protection or a blessing in us getting passed up for that house, because we were able to find a different property that was more affordable, that worked better for us. The commute was better, in a better neighborhood. And because I was willing to adapt to change, even though I did feel bad about it, I was able to turn back to the house hunting search with more positivity and more of an open mind to find the place that actually worked better for us. So embrace change, adapt to it. Another part of cultivating renewal is setting intentions and goals for growth. But before I go to that, not to go back and forth, this is actually a really important story I want to share. So a friend of mine came to me and she was really distressed. And it's a part of adapting to change. And she was saying that one of her best friends just got pregnant. And instead of feeling happy for her, she felt horrible. Her friend was married and now pregnant, and she's single and in a different place. And I was like, why are you feeling bad? And she told me, I'm going to be honest, I just feel like everything is going to change now that my very best friend is pregnant. And I looked at her and I empathized with that. She wasn't upset that her friend was in this beautiful season of her life. She was so afraid of what it would mean and how it would change their relationship. Well, a part of adapting to change is realizing that you also aren't the same as you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. In order for you to be exactly where you are now, you also have changed. So, as much as change may be a scary thing, adaptation to change is really the only reasonable or fair response, because change is going to happen no matter what. Change is inevitable so long as we're living. So it's better for our mental health to embrace change because one, we know that we can't escape it, and two, so much good can come from it. I wanted to share that as a way to legitimize our feelings and fears around change, while also reframing it so that we can better understand the benefits of it. Okay, so now I want to go to the other part of cultivating renewal, and that's setting intentions for growth. I want to first establish the difference between an intention and a goal. Did y'all know that they were different? Intentions and goals are two different things. So for those of you, again, I keep on referring to December's episodes. I'm telling you, they were great. So go back to BDO's YouTube page if you want to search Cultivate Your Mental Wealth with Joyce Ozeh. Look at those December conversations because they're really going to kind of give us a framework for tonight's conversation. So when we're talking about setting intentions, in December, we talked about how our intentions are about the journey and our personal values, while goals are more specific targets that help you get to where you want or help you meet the objective that you want to get at. So with intentions, you're focused on the journey and your personal values, and with goals, you're focused on the outcome and a specific target. You may be wondering, Joyce, which one's better? Should I focus on the intention or should I focus on the goal? I'm here to tell you, you get to have both. So you don't have to choose, but it is critical that you incorporate a journey-focused mindset as you navigate new beginnings in this new year and this season. So a part of cultivating renewal is focusing on crafting intentions that align with your core values and your aspirations. You also might be wondering, what are core values? I don't even know what mine are. We are going to have an entire episode dedicated to how to identify your core values and how to live by your core values. But as a quick way to kind of see where our core values lie, think about the things that tick you off. Maybe you set a date with one of your girlfriends and she's 30 minutes late. For those of you who don't think of timeliness as a core value, it's important to you, but it's not a core value, you may not get really upset with your friend. It's like, oh, it's Shannon, she's always late. But for those of you who have a core value of timeliness and order, like myself, lateness actually kind of upsets you. In fact, even when I'm running late, I get very anxious and upset because that's a core value. And because I know that that's one of my core values, when I'm setting my goals or future outcomes, I use my core values as intentions and way to guide me to my goals. So the great thing about setting intentions in the new year is it allows you to be flexible. Again, we talked more about this in December if you want more detail, but flexibility is so important in thinking of new beginnings and cultivating renewal in our mind so that we don't hold ourselves to impossible standards and we're able to celebrate along the way. And this also brings me to the third part of cultivating renewal and the final part of our discussion. Before I get to that, I want to do a quick check-in with folks. Hi from New York City. Oh, you're the author of two great books on mind, mental, and overall health and wellness. Please, please, please drop a link to where we can purchase those books, learn more about those books. I love reading, and this is about resource sharing. So if you have books that you want to share and that you authored, we would love to support you. You're in the right community. Let us know what you've written and where we can find it. And Donna, you are so welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us, Donna. And I'm glad that that conversation about embracing change and adapting to change spoke to you. And I hope that the rest of the conversation speaks to you too. Continue to let me know where you're tuning in from. Also, continue to let us know what your favorite Black designer is, because I think that we should share resources. And if you are your favorite Black designer or you are your favorite author, let us know in the chat. We want to hear from you. Okay, back to the talk. The third part of cultivating a renewed mind is developing a positive mindset. It is important to cultivate positivity as we're going into this new year of new beginnings and renewal. And again, I mention the word cultivate a lot. It's the title of my show, and I use it intentionally because I don't want any of us to think that getting to a place of wellness happens overnight. I don't want any of us to think that if we're not immediately well, we're doing it wrong. Again, what I say in the beginning of our conversation, cultivation is about nurturing. It's about taking time and putting careful attention to something so that you can see growth. It requires patience. It requires care. But more than anything, again, it requires time. The same thing is true for developing a positive mindset. I'm going to be very honest with you all. When I was writing Develop a Positive Mindset, I cringed. I cringed at myself. A lot of us in this space are Black people. You may not identify as Black or African American, but this next statement is still going to be true. A lot of us are struggling with real things, and the idea of cultivating positivity sounds like more than we can do right now. Sure, it's a new year, but it doesn't mean that things didn't happen last year that you still have to deal with now that it's January. So cultivating positivity sounds gimmicky. It could sound like forced joy. I want to tell you that I'm very sensitive to that. But I also want to tell you that we're going to get into this in the practical pushes later at the end. Nothing about cultivation diminishes the real trauma and experiences that you've been through. So when I'm talking about cultivating positivity, I'm not talking about it in a way that's toxic or in a way that forces you to ignore the struggle or the challenges that you're facing. It just is an ask of you to reframe your mindset. Get your mind ripe and ready like good soil for renewal, because renewal of your mind in this new year is so possible for you. One of the things that really got me out of depression and anxiety was focusing on my self-talk. A positive and healthy mind includes examining your self-talk, more specifically, how you talk to yourself, that self-talk. I want you to ask yourself, what words are you using to describe yourself? It could be how you describe yourself in your head. It could be how you even describe yourself to your friends or others. When I was very sick, would do something wrong and I'd be like, oh, you're such an idiot, Joyce. Just naturally. Or like, oh, that was so stupid. And I realized when I wanted to get healthy that I really thought of myself as stupid or an idiot. And I didn't know that it took years of negative self-talk. Even if I thought I was joking, even if it was just a split second of me saying it and moving on, I was building something in my mind that was cultivating negativity that I didn't want to identify with any longer. But if you can cultivate negativity It means you can also cultivate positivity. So be mindful of the words that you're using to describe yourself. Also, be mindful of the words that you're using to describe your circumstance. You could be going through something very difficult, and you're able to identify that thing as difficult while also saying something positive. Not necessarily about the situation, but positive about the way that you can get out of it. And we'll get more into that during our practical pushes. Also, be mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with and how they're speaking about you and to you. People who claim to love you, people you've been friends with for decades, may not be able to join you on this journey of cultivating positivity and a renewed mind because they might not be positive or renewed themselves. And it is okay to distance yourself from people who aren't able to cultivate a renewed lifestyle and mental wealth and the way that you are. Look up my series on boundaries. Again, it's on BDO's YouTube page under my name, Boundaries. Look it up, and it will teach you ways to navigate boundaries in those kinds of situations with your friends. The last thing I want to talk about is negativity bias and how humans actually have a tendency towards negative experiences and seeing our life through those negative experiences. Negativity bias essentially says that if a bad thing happens to you, you put more weight and you focus more on that negative experience than you would a positive experience or even a neutral experience. So let's say you were giving a presentation in 5th grade, and before you got up to the front of the class, you tripped. You were able to get back up. You gave a great presentation, but all you can remember years later, or even at the end of the day, is that you tripped before giving the presentation. You couldn't remember the A plus that you got. You can't remember the children applauding for you at the end. All you focus on is that you fell down. That's the essence of negativity bias. And it's this idea that we tend to focus and give more weight and importance to the negative things that happen to us. Well, if we want to be intentional about renewed minds and positivity and just healing overall, I challenge you to work consciously and recognize one, that you may have a tendency to focus on the negative things that happen to you. But two, I challenge you to punctuate your life with praise. I call it punctuated praise. I believe that our life should have punches of celebration littered throughout all of it. You don't have to wait for that big raise to celebrate. You don't have to wait for your birthday to buy yourself a bottle of champagne and some cake. You don't have to wait for that big thing to bring joy to your situation. Punctuating your life with praise means celebrating small victories and wins. As a Christian, for me, it means worshiping, even when I don't feel like it, but putting on my favorite gospel song or my favorite worship song and just punctuating the day with praise. It changes the atmosphere, and it's a practice that goes against negativity bias, and it creates positivity in our mind, and it helps shift our focus to what went wrong to everything that went right. So let's work on that. Okay, folks, that's all we have for tonight's conversation. But before we go, we're going to get to practical pushes. But before that, I want to tell you about what's coming next. In 2 weeks, I hope that you join me in the same conversation about resilience. This is a 2-part series on renewal. And today we were talking about renewal of new beginnings and embracing change. And part 2 is going to get into the nitty-gritty about how to stay resilient as we work through our intentions and our goals for the year. Because a resilient mind is a healthy and mentally wealthy mind. And I want us to build the tools we need to be resilient. Helen, I see you tuning in from Texas. I love that name. It's my mother's name. So glad to have you join the space. And you came right on time because we are going to be talking about practical pushes and ways to incorporate what we've learned today in our discussion. So stay tuned for practical pushes. Okay, friends, we've made it to the very end, and this is actually legitimately my favorite part of the discussion because it allows us to have tools and be equipped to practice what we've preached in this space. I have a challenge for you, and I'm going to call it the Mind Shift Challenge. I want us to work on shifting our minds from where we're at to where we want to be in terms of renewal, mental wealth, and positivity. First, I can't underscore enough how important it is to acknowledge and validate your feelings and experiences. Recognize and name them as part of processing them. Again, you may be going through something difficult, and now I'm challenging you to shift your mindset. It does not mean that you ignore that you're going through something difficult. A part of the mindset shift or the set shift is to identify what you're feeling, validate it, and say, you know what? I'm feeling this, and that is okay. It is reasonable to feel this way. I'm not overreacting, I'm not underreacting. I also want to avoid forced positivity. I also call it toxic positivity. There may have been a death in your family, or maybe someone fell ill. Maybe there's been a negative diagnosis that you're dealing with and you're processing. The Mind Shift Challenge doesn't dismiss or gloss over any of these things. It's more about transitioning slowly to a healthier state of mind and constructive reframing. That is, building new ways to think about and to process what you're going through. I challenge you to reframe your situation in a balanced way. So you can name that you are going through a difficult time, but remind yourself at the end that it is impossible for any one thing to last forever. And this negative situation or season must pass. Or you can say, yes, I'm going through a difficult time, but I have consistently survived every difficult time that I have ever encountered. You are resilient. You were made for this. You can and you will overcome. That's what reframing can look like. So take small steps towards positivity. This could be expressing gratitude every single morning, no matter how you feel, just writing one small thing that you're thankful for. This could also mean punctuating praise and practicing celebration, identifying small victories so that you can recognize your own strength, how far you've come, your own progress. You deserve to validate yourself as you progress, as you grow stronger, and as you get mentally well. I really do believe that mental wellness is for you. Mental wellness is possible. And with that being said, I can't wait to see you in 2 weeks, and I hope that you go thrive. Take care, friends.